You're standing in a frozen river valley in what will one day be called Siberia, roughly 45,000 years ago. The wind comes off the steppe at -20. In front of you, close enough that you can feel the ground vibrate beneath your feet, stands a woolly mammoth. It weighs 13 tons. Its tusks alone are 11 feet long and curl outward like broken gates. You are holding a wooden spear tipped with a piece of shaped stone roughly the size of your fist. The mammoth does not run from you. It has no instinct to. Nothing has ever hunted it before. So how did early humans, anatomically identical to you, without metal, without horses, without anything a hardware store would stock, bring down the largest land animal in their world, time after time? Across 3 continents and 40,000 years? The answer rewrites almost everything assumed about who those people were. Consider what life looked like before any of this mattered. Right now, the worst hunting challenge most people face is traffic on the way to a grocery store. The mammoth is behind glass. The danger is theoretical. For the people of the Upper Paleolithic, the gap between eating and not eating was measured in whether their spear flew true, and the thing they were throwing it at weighed as much as 2 African elephants combined. Here's where it gets strange. For decades, the working assumption was that early humans were opportunists, scavengers who occasionally got lucky with a weak or dying animal. The idea of deliberate, organized mammoth hunting felt like mythology dressed up as archaeology. Then the excavations caught up with the assumptions, and the assumptions lost. In 1993, a team led by archaeologist Gary Haynes at a site complex near Clovis, New Mexico documented evidence of repeated, concentrated mammoth kills, not isolated accidents. But a pattern of intentional targeting stretched across multiple generations of the same kill sites. The bone assemblages showed butchering marks only possible if hunters reached the carcass within hours of death. Not scavengers circling something already dead. Hunters who made the kill themselves. The numbers are harder to dismiss than the idea. A single adult mammoth yielded roughly 2,000 pounds of edible meat, enough to feed a band of 25 people for nearly 3 weeks. The caloric math made mammoth hunting not just possible, but rational. Worth the risk, worth the coordination. Worth, it turns out, a level of social planning that reframes everything about who these people were, but there's a problem. A 13-ton animal with 11-foot tusks and a pain threshold to match doesn't stand still while you work out a strategy. And a thrusting spear, the only weapon early evidence confirms, has an effective kill range of roughly 3 feet. 3 feet from a mammoth. So how did hunters actually close that distance? In 2021, researchers at the University of California, Santa Barbara, working from evidence at the Hartley Mammoth site in New Mexico, published findings showing that a site dated to roughly 37,000 years ago contained human-modified bone alongside intact mammoth remains, potentially pushing confirmed hunting evidence back further than previously accepted. The site preserved something critical, the kill location itself, not just the aftermath. Hunters hadn't chased the animal across open ground. They had positioned themselves where the terrain did the hard work, a steep drainage channel roughly 40 meters wide that limited the mammoth's ability to turn or accelerate. Landscape was the first weapon. The spear was second. This wasn't improvised. Identifying a kill site, a choke point in the terrain, a frozen river crossing. A natural bog required knowledge of the land accumulated across seasons and generations. It was scouted, remembered, passed down. The hunt began weeks before the first spear was thrown. Here's where another assumption collapses. Everyone assumes mammoth hunters were following herds, nomadic and reactive, chasing prey across the landscape as it moved. The evidence from the Pedmost site in what is now the Czech Republic tells a different story. Excavations there, analyzed extensively in the early 2000s by archaeozoologist G. Svoboda and colleagues, revealed the skeletal remains of at least 1,000 individual mammoths concentrated in a single location over multiple occupation layers. 1,000 animals. One site. That is not a migration route stumbled across by lucky hunters. That is a location chosen, returned to, and exploited with methodical precision across potentially hundreds of years. Pedmost wasn't a camp near the mammoth. It was a facility built around the hunt. The bone piles weren't just food. Mammoth bones, femurs, ribs, skulls were used as structural material for dwellings, fuel for fires when wood was absent, and raw material for tools and figurines. One dwelling at the Medzyryk site in Ukraine dated to approximately 15,000 years ago and studied in detail by archaeologist Olga Sofer in the 1980s was constructed from the bones and tusks of roughly 95 individual mammoths. The architecture required not a single hunt, but the organized accumulation of hundreds of kills over time. Nothing about any of this is accidental. So what made it work? Not individual strength. Not individual bravery, something more difficult and more interesting than both. A mammoth can absorb a remarkable amount of punishment and still function. Its vital organs sit deep behind 12 inches of fat, muscle, and a rib cage built like structural timber. A single stone-tipped spear, even thrown with force, was unlikely to kill one outright. What the archaeological record consistently shows instead is evidence of multiple impact points on the same skeleton, wounds from several directions clustered around the flanks and the base of the skull. Not one hunter. A coordinated group attacking simultaneously from positions that denied the animal any single direction of escape. Here's the twist no one expects. The weapon that killed mammoths most reliably wasn't sharper, faster, or stronger than anything the mammoth had encountered. It was slower. It was patient. And it existed only because early humans had already invented something more powerful than any spear, a social technology for coordinating strangers toward a shared risk. Language, shared mental maps. The ability to say, you go left, you go right, we hold here. Anthropologist Kim Sterelny, in his 2012 work published by MIT Press, argued that what separated early Homo sapiens wasn't brain size or raw cognitive ability, it was cumulative culture. The capacity to store information in a group and pass it forward intact. Mammoth hunting was the most demanding exam that culture had ever faced, and early humans passed it. That brings the story back to the frozen valley. Back to the 13 tons in front of you, the spear in your hand, the ground humming through the soles of your feet. What actually happened in that moment wasn't you against the mammoth. It was 20 people, with a plan they had spent years building, deploying a kill in a place their grandparents had taught them to find. The spear was almost incidental. The coordination was everything. Every achievement celebrated as individual in the modern world, the innovation, the breakthrough, the solitary genius, turns out when traced back far enough to look like a mammoth hunt. Many people, shared knowledge, a plan older than the people executing it. The real weapon was never in anyone's hand. It was between them,